7. Friends that wound. The silence between Job and his friends finally broke. After 7 days of sitting together in the ash heap, surrounded by the stench of sores and sorrow, Job opened his mouth, not to curse, but to mourn. His words were raw, stripped of all pretense. "Let the day perish in which I was born," he said. It wasn't a prayer. It was a lament. Job didn't curse God, but he cursed his own life. He wished he had never drawn breath. His cry was not rebellion. It was anguish. In his pain, Job was trying to make sense of suffering that had no explanation. He wasn't asking for wealth. He wasn't asking for healing. He was asking, why? Why would God allow such ruin without a cause? Why would heaven be silent while hell raged? It was the cry of every broken heart that has ever sat in ashes. But instead of comfort, Job received condemnation. Eliphaz, the first of his so-called friends, answered him with poetry masked in pride. "If you were pure and upright," he said, "surely now he would awake for you and prosper your rightful dwelling place." His implication was devastating. Job must be guilty. No one suffers this much unless they have sinned. To Eliphaz, pain was evidence of divine punishment. His theology was rigid and heartless. Good things happen to good people, and bad things happen to bad people. So if Job was suffering, he must have done wrong. Eliphaz wasn't speaking for God. He was speaking from tradition, from assumption, and from the comfort of not being the one in the ashes. Bildad followed, harsher than the first. "Does God pervert justice?" he demanded. "If your sons have sinned against him, he cast them away for their transgression." In one breath, Bildad not only accused Job of sin, but declared that his children had died because they deserved it. Imagine the pain that pierced Job's heart at those words. The children he had prayed for, sacrificed for, wept over. Bildad declared them judged. Instead of binding Job's wounds, he poured salt into them. Instead of lifting his friend, he crushed him. Zophar came last, and he was the cruelest of all. "Know this," he said with an air of superiority. "God exacts from you less than your iniquity deserves." Less. In other words, Job, you deserve worse than this. These were not friends, these were prosecutors. They had come to mourn but had turned into messengers of misery. They saw his condition, and instead of compassion, they offered conclusions. Instead of mercy, they offered measurements. They weighed Job's suffering and determined it was just. But they were wrong. Job defended himself, not because he was proud, but because he knew the truth. "I am blameless," he said. "I have not hidden sin in my heart." He never claimed perfection, but he knew his suffering was not a result of secret sin. He longed for an advocate, someone who could stand between him and God. "Oh, that there were a mediator between us," Job cried, "who might lay his hand upon us both." Though he did not know it, Job was pointing forward to Christ, the true mediator. The greatest pain in Job's trial was not the loss of wealth or even the boils. It was the isolation, the abandonment, not just by his servants and wife, but by his friends. Their words wounded deeper than the sword. They were convinced they were defending God, but they were misrepresenting him. In time, God himself would say to them, "You have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has." In the furnace of affliction, Job stood alone, misunderstood by men, misjudged by friends, unanswered by heaven. And yet, his faith flickered on. He did not curse. He did not collapse. Though surrounded by voices of accusation, he clung to the hope that somewhere, somehow, God still saw him.